You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Hello, and welcome to Writing Black, theGrio's podcast about all things Black and literary and wordy. And I am, as always, your host, Maiysha, lifestyle editor of theGrio. Today we have a really special guest with what I consider to be a really special book. Tara M. Stringfellow is with us today with her acclaimed novel, Memphis. Very exciting for me to have this conversation. I'm trying not to get too fangirly about it. This is, am I wrong? This is your debut, right, Tara?
Yes, this is actually the first time I've ever written fiction. I've never written a short story. This is it. Well, this was like a nice, fun hobby.
A nice, fun hobby, she says, which is amazing to hear because we're talking about a book that is, to date, a national bestseller. This has been picked as a Jenna Book Club pick on Today. It is been called a rhapsodic hymn to Black women by the New York Times Book Review. So I would say nice first go out of the gate. Were you surprised by that response to this novel?
Half of me says yes, and I'm still very surprised.
You ain't got to be modest. I will not judge you.
But the other half of me is like, I knew. Mm-hmm. I knew it'd be a hit. All right. From when I sat down and I wrote the title.
Okay.
Memphis. That's the thing I wrote. I said, this is going to be so good. Nobody ready for this. And then I would chuckle like that, like you will laugh and write a paragraph. And I said, oof, we.
Well, I love that. I love that story. And I love where it fits in this moment in time and every moment in time it captures, because this is a narrative that spans several generations and 70 years. And, let's start at the beginning, really. I mean, what was the genesis of Memphis for you?
It was the 2016 presidential election and Donald Trump had won.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
It was my birthday. I was devastated. Mm-hmm. And I honestly thought that us Black Lives Matter poets, as I consider myself, would be jailed for our writing, would be put in cages, would be censored. Wow. And so I felt that night a sense of urgency as an artist to write something that would stand the test of time, even if I was killed for it. And so that's what the book is. It's my final declaration of self in a country designed to enslave me.
We're going to make it, she thought. We're going to make it. She locked the 92 Chevy Astro van with her 2 children and one husky inside it. Wait here. 4 brown eyes stared back, eyes that were hungry for an answer, for home. They reminded Miriam of lost soldiers. She walked slowly toward the Exxon filling station, hyper-aware of her surroundings. The only Black woman for miles she knew. A mountain ridge crested like a tsunami before her, a blue that would put any ocean to shame, she thought. Almost home, Mir. Almost home.
That is a word and a half. And of course, I think I love that you pointed out that you are also a poet. Because, when you talk about writing and just like the mediums of writing, one of the reasons that I created this podcast is because I'm as a writer myself who writes across genres, I'm always interested in other writers and their craft and how they arrive, where they arrive, and how they build the stories that they do. Memphis is as much about a time and a place, obviously a place, as it is about politics and love and family and femaleness, in the world. And I was so taken in by this novel. I said I didn't want to fangirl, but I'm going to have to say this thing. I read a lot of books, obviously. It's what I do.
All right.
And Albert, our producer, can back me up on this. I said to him, Albert, this book is really, really incredible. Like, this is an incredible book. This is like one of the most incredible books I've read in a while. And that is no shade to any of our other tremendous authors who come on this show. But when I say that, it was because it's very rare that I read a book that not only reminds me of why I first fell in love with fiction, right? But also reminded me of why I fell in love with Black female narratives, because this is a book that, for me, reading it, and this is the most ringing endorsement I can give to our listeners, that for me, reading it reminded me of the books that I fell in love with in my, I would say, my early adolescence, you know, like when you're first getting turned on to like A Color Purple or For Colored Girls, or, you know, one of my personal favorites, Sula, or Women of Brewster Place, like all of these books. And I know I'm not the only one who's made those comparisons. I've seen some of your other endorsements from other writers. And I think that they are very true. Like a lot of times, you know, we see these promo packages and we're like, sure. You know, to our listeners, it is worth the hype. And it's a simple but interwoven tale.
I don't question at all.
There is no question, because I needed to declare my adoration for this book first. And I wanted to set that up that way because when people make those comparisons between this, your debut novel, and some of those books that I just mentioned, do you still have that sense, that half of surprise, that half of, you know, yeah, I knew it? Or, I mean, what was your aim when you set out to do it?
I set out to write, you know, I wrote it with my dad, really, over COVID. Wow. He's my first reader. He's my first editor. I send him everything I write before I send it to my agent or my editor at Penguin Random House, Katie Nishimoto, a brilliant woman. But he taught me everything I know about writing. And so it was very humbling to me to write it, to rewrite it, to edit it at a time in which I thought we might all die. Like there was no vaccine. And so I wrote it with all of me, not knowing that the world would ever see it or we would survive enough to get to read it. And so I'm very grateful and humbled by all of the acclaim and the attention it's gotten. But it is so surreal still too for me, because I wrote it in my daddy's basement with like with 2 pennies to rub together. And all y'all keep talking about it.
It's on a mug, you know. Listen, I love that. I love that origin story, because it really drives home the fact that when it comes to the writer and the page, whether, you know, the people who are listening right now, whether you're aspiring to write, whether you just want to know how the sausage is made, you know, when it comes to like putting out these books, it can be just that simple. I also love that your father was a part of the crafting of this book, because it's such a female-driven narrative. I mean, it really is. This is in many ways, a women's story. And one of the questions I found myself wanting, you know, to ask while I was reading is, I was like, wow, you know, is the world more ready to read this book now than they were, say, when like The Color Purple came out, you know, like when Alice Walker got all that beef about this, like, this man bashing, you know, this black man bashing book. You know, men are not the heroes here in Memphis. I mean, you know, nobody's entirely a hero or a villain. And I love that too. These are nuanced characters, but
I would have to disagree with that.
Okay. Well, please do state your case, man. This is your book. So
it's, Rerin is one hell of a hero.
Okay.
And all he has ever done, and all Jax has ever really done too, is to strive their best to put their life on the line for a country, and to provide for their families. Mm-hmm. And they did so in the most heroic of ways. They served overseas in wars that took from people, all to come back and to build a life for their black children. I don't know a greater love than that. So I'm going to have to disagree that there are male heroes. Stanley is a male hero.
Stanley is a male hero. He is. I will give you that. Yes. And I would give, Myron too. I would definitely say Myron too. You know, just, you know, we're running out of character. There's a family tree here, but yes.
You know, and of course there are villains in every story, but I feel for Derek and for Uncle Bird and for Jax, and I don't want folk to hate them. I want folk to hate the lack of opportunities that this country afforded those characters. And that is why they are who they are, because nobody gave a damn about them, because they were Black boys into men. So it was a satirical characterization of the oppressive systems against Black men in this country.
I can hear that.
That's why I like my men characters. I fight for them.
Listen, I love hearing that. I love hearing that. But I mean, I think that actually you just kind of proved my point, because again, like, I don't think Alice Walker hated her male characters either. Like, I don't think she did. I think, you write them with a tenderness, and you also write them with a real lens on like what that does to a person's psyche, and the horror that we can exact on each other when we've been through a certain amount of brutality. So
exactly.
That's what's real. We're going to get into this a little bit more when we come right back with more Tara Stringfellow and more of Memphis when Writing Black returns. Okay, we are back with more Writing Black and our guest today, Tara M. Stringfellow, and this incredible book, Memphis, which I've already named one of my favorites of the year. No shade to anybody else. This was just such a great narrative for me. I just really loved it. I sunk my teeth into it. I wanted to read it again and again. I cried. It was really the writing of it. And I don't think that there's any coincidence here that you are a poet. You said this is your first time writing fiction. So let's talk about that approach to doing this. I mean, that's really ambitious. And how was it similar and dissimilar from what you were used to doing on the page?
I had fun with it. It's because I'm not a fiction writer, and this was my first time. I said, well, I can do whatever I want. Like, there are no rules. And so I feel very liberated in this genre because I'm new to it. So I can make mistakes, I can fumble, and I'll still patch it up and make it look a kind of way. But, I just wanted to have a lot of fun writing. I always have fun writing, but sometimes it can be a torment. And I didn't want this to be. I knew I was going to dedicate 4 to 6 years of my life on this. It better be fun to write, and I wanted to be in that world and in the world of the characters and get to know them more. And I don't know, it was a joy. It was such a joy and a blessing to write. I had the time of my life.
Well, I mean, ditto for reading it, but specifically, I mean, I think building characters is a thing, and I so many of the writers that we talk to who write fiction, I ask them about this process, and and one of our writers recently talked about how she really has to live with them for a really long time. Others say, no, I knew these people in my life, so I just kind of had to move some things around, but I had a composite for who this person was based on somebody I already knew. How did that play out for you?
I guess a little bit of both. I definitely lived with the characters, but also I could just remember things about my own family, about my own aunties, something that was said, sister said, on a voice, a shape of a woman in an old photo. So I had a lot of great primary sources to work with. It was a treasure trove, really, of ancestral memories and family folklore. So it was, again, rather easy. I wish I could say.
Listen, you know what? I would love to dispel the narrative that everything for us has to be anguish. I love hearing that this was joyful for you. I love hearing that it was easy for you, because I do think that so much of what we think of as producing work in general, let alone something that people are calling great, is supposed to be mired in some sort of trauma and torture and anguish. And I love the fact that this was a joyful exercise for you, particularly at these 2 really pivotal and terrifying junctures in recent history that we all have lived through. I think that this idea of a novel as reprieve from that is gorgeous. I'm here for it. I'm like, yeah, I love this. That a novel as therapy, I think is another one to explore. So
I would save up all my pennies and go write on a beach in Cuba with somebody's Cuban son, fantasy. pina colada and a coconut and a lit menthol. He rolled himself. I looked to kind of like writing this book. I finished it in Florence, overlooking like vineyards. It was ridiculous.
It sounds idyllic, yeah.
Chocolatey, poor black self from North Memphis in Italy, finishing a book. It was a time, let me tell you.
Well, that's how the magic happens. I want to hear more about the time, and we are going to hear more about the time. I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back with more Tara M. Stringfellow and more Writing Black. All right, Miss Tara M. Stringfellow with this incredible book, Memphis. So you were just talking about sitting in Florence, finishing this book, looking out on the vineyards, and it sounds like, eat, pray, love, some glory from scratch, the whole thing, we're there, we're living it. And you've lived all over the world, including here in my home city of Chicago.
Yes.
You are a worldly person. You are an attorney as well.
Yes.
So there's that part of your history as well that's coming in here. And you're bringing all of this back home, right? All of this experience back home. I want to talk about Memphis. This is a place that, as you illustrate in the novel, as you bring very real life events to fore in this fictional piece, Memphis continues to be, to this very day, just like Chicago, a place that is very rich in history, very rich in Black influence, Black culture, Black success, also Black trauma, Black, struggle in many ways, in terms of the disenfranchisement of large swaths of the population in each of these major cities, the major historic cities. Tell me what Memphis means to you.
Music. Yeah, it's a musical place here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, gospel music is a big thing that we've been leaning on, especially in the wake of Tyree Nichols' death. I've been listening to a lot of gospel records at home at night. And, my mom says when something horrible, something tragic happens, we praise him. And when something beautiful happens, we praise him. So that's what I think about when I think about Shy and when I think about Memphis. I consider myself half and half from both. My daddy from the south side of Chicago, from, Chicago Heights, Ford Heights.
I know it well. I know it well, yes.
Shout out to Miss Vivian and Markham, who would do my hair for years.
I love it.
What was that on, like 167th and Dixie Highway?
Yes. If you knew how close I grew up to Dixie Highway, you would fall out right now. That's so funny.
Right. Second and Dobson, Stoney and Dobbs, all the. I love Chicago, and I also love Memphis. I love beautiful Black spaces in this country. Isn't it something where you can walk around the neighborhood and know, everybody knows you. They've known your family for generations. Mm-hmm. You know where to go to get the best food, the best plate your hair did. I don't know, being in the south side of Chicago, the south suburbs, and being in North Memphis, I feel so authentically, beautifully Black. And so I just wanted to write a novel that praised these spaces. Every time I would turn on the TV or see a television show or a movie, it was always showing so much death and destruction in our neighborhoods. And yeah, we do have a lot of that, but we also have some of the most beautiful people, I think, ever walked the face of this earth. Mm-hmm. And so I really just wanted to write a novel that acknowledged that duality. And that is very present and clear, yes.
The night before Miriam and Jax got married, August decided that her wedding present to her sister would be the gift of song. Jax's recent first lieutenant rank had come with orders to be in North Carolina, his new wife by his side by the start of fall. The two sisters were sitting in their bedroom, hair wrapped in rollers, when Miriam said, "Sing for me tomorrow, will you?" There was a catch in her voice. and August could see desperation in her older sister's eyes. In all their years together, this was the only favor Miriam had ever asked of August.
Always think about this quote, and I'll recite it real quick. We younger Negro artists who create now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white folk are pleased, we're glad. If not, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful and ugly too. The tom-tom laughs and the tom-tom cries. If black folk are pleased, we are glad. If not, their displeasure doesn't matter either. We build our temples for tomorrow, strong as we know how, and we stand upon the mountain, free within ourselves. End quote. Langston Hughes wrote that in 1925, and I still feel as if it's very much applicable today. Memphis is my individual dark-skinned expression of self. I love that. I stand up and down.
I love that. I love that you just did that, because you also, you start your book with an incredible quote as well, that I had never read before, even though I'm a huge Toni Morrison fan and follower for many years. And you talk about, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want people to read. And I think what a gorgeous quote excerpt to be opening this book with. But basically, you talk about Black women having had nothing to fall back on, not maleness, not whiteness, not ladyhood, not anything. And out of the profound desolation of her reality, she may very well have invented herself. And, it's only a slight coincidence. It's perfect coincidence to me. I believe in Kismet, and here we are. It's Women's History Month. And, you have written this work that, easily falls into historical fiction as much as anything else, because we're really reaching back in time for these narratives that I think so many of us, I saw my great-grandparents in this. I saw my aunties. I saw myself and my, cousins, and that turmoil. I love the way you talk about beauty in this book, not just physical beauty. Visual art is really big in this book, which you don't always see in a written work. Right. What was the inspiration behind having your protagonist be a visual artist?
My prom date, Siobhan Bullock from Craigmont, class of 03, was an artist. And he is a very well-known muralist throughout the city of Memphis. He does beautiful murals. He did the Isaac Hayes Soulsville mural. Our Memphis listeners, they'll know that mural very well. So I just kind of wanted to shout out him.
I love it.
That's it. I use different things in my life sometimes.
No, but you're so, the reason I ask is because you're so detailed in the way that you talk about the process of creating visual art. I mean, it's as if you are there in the studio with the charcoals and the oils and the watercolors and the, so I was really curious to know if that was part of your own background.
I grew up drawing and painting, and I can draw a little bit, but not professionally. I just loved doing it. But no, I wanted to kind of shout out all the Memphis artists. We have so many visual artists here in the city who really paint the town. And I just wanted to acknowledge their efforts to make this city beautiful. That's it.
Well, you did so. We're going to talk a little bit more about the process of bringing Memphis to the page when we come back with more Writing Black. We are back with Writing Black and Tara M. Stringfellow, whose book Memphis has garnered so much acclaim, and rightfully so. I swooned over it. Listen, I knew, can we talk about your acknowledgements section, actually? I've never, ever in my whole entire life, countless books I've read, have seen an acknowledgement section that became its own short story, and I was weeping at the acknowledgements, because it was so beautifully. I was like, this is so beautifully written. Oh my gosh, it was like another scene from the book. And there's so many people who are obviously such a huge part of this, just part of your immediate family. But listen, I'm not trying. I don't. I don't give praise that's undue, but you can ask my writers. I'm a very exacting editor, but I was, really struck by that. I mean, it's just such a rarity. Most people just kind of go, okay, thank you to for making this happen. And you really, I think, as much as, quilts are another motif in this book, it felt very much like that, this tree of life that you were kind of creating for us in this Acknowledgements. I wanted to just talk about words, like being in love with words and the use of words and how we use words, because you're obviously in love with words. You can tell when somebody's in love with language. Why was that a deliberate choice for you? Or was it? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you're just writing love letters. I don't know. But it came across like another scene.
I wanted folk to know that I didn't get here alone. It took a village to get me here. It took God and lots of miracles, and folk taking chances on me. Like my agent, Sumia, signed with me when I only had 22 pages of the novel written. Or my brilliant editor, Katie Nishimoto, who worked with me through COVID when we didn't think there was a cure or we'd survive. And, my father, my mother, my friends, all the drunk brunches that in which they show up together. You better write something, girl. I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to those people who brought me here and who still carry me in so many ways. I'm very blessed, and I'm still trying to figure out why that is. But I like this.
Maybe it was so you could do this
whole ride, and it has been something else. And sometimes at night I just have to sit back and say, "Wow, folk really love me."
So thank you, Pops. Because when I was all of 4, you gave me a gift that would shape the rest of my life. That poets can tell stories too. Oorah.
We're going to talk more about that. And I want to talk a little bit more about these incredible professors, because there's quite a few of them that are some well-known names there that you've studied with, when we come back with more Writing Black. All right, Writing Black returns with our guest today, Tara M. Stringfellow, and her incredible debut novel, Memphis. If you have not heard about this book yet, you will, because it's good stuff. It's good stuff. It's really hitting on all levels. You are a poet. You are an attorney. You are now a novelist. You have had some incredible teachers along this path who made it into that list of acknowledgement that I was so moved by. People will be prone to tell you when it comes to the creative arts that you either have it or you don't. Obviously, there are still shepherds who guide us. There are people who help cultivate the craft. What did your teachers do for you in terms of giving you the confidence to even feel like you can embark on something like this?
And you've been trying to make me cry this whole damn interview.
I am not. No. Just because you made me cry does not mean I would make you cry.
It's true. I'm offended.
I'm sorry. Barbara Walters, I'm just like, give it to me. Right?
What have my teachers done for me? Oh, my God. What haven't they done for me? I think about Mr. Cook, this, white man in North Memphis teaching all these black kids. And one day he brought in persimmons from his garden to teach Greek mythology, because we had never eaten a persimmon. None of us knew or would probably ever know what that would taste like. And the fact that he fed these black children from his own garden.
That's so moving. That's so moving.
What teachers mean to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here without my teachers, my primary teachers. God, I remember Miss Pillow back in Okinawa. She was my first grade teacher. you know, professors of mine who pushed me, Reginald Gibbons out at Northwestern, created an entire degree for me. No one else has ever graduated with a track in both poetry and fiction with a master's degree from that university. I'm the only graduate. You know, sure, I got a talent, yes. I guess so, but I worked hard at it, to perfect it. And I listened to my teachers, to Dr. Tracy Von Manley, you know, who taught me how to quilt. Yes, you won. You made me cry.
I did not intend to. That might be actually a first for this podcast, actually. So I'm just going to say, listen. You the book is remarkable. So are you. So there you go. There's a first for everything, just like that degree. I'm also going to shout out Dr. Hakeem Madhubuti, who I know you studied with, who is the founder of Third World Press, and he's here in Chicago.
My first collection of poetry.
I love it. So yeah, and I'm always shouting him out because I think he's incredible and he's such a living legend at this point. We are going to be right back with more Tara M. Stringfellow and more Writing Black. So Tara, we were just talking about teachers, and I want to turn the lens to something else, which is, and this is at the risk of, you know, making you cry again.
Oh my God.
You know, we talked about writing history. We talked about writing place. We talked about building characters. We talked about, you know, the importance of our teachers. I'm sitting there, I'm listening to your story about, you know, Mr. Cook, who brought you all the persimmons. I was like, and I feel him in Stanley. You know, I see these like correlations, right? But I do want to talk about, as much as, you know, this book is about so many things, but obviously, as joyful as this book was for you to write, you also tasked yourself with writing trauma, and that is, I think, another that's a muscle, that's a skill set.
Yes.
I don't think trauma is easy to. I mean, it's not easy to experience, obviously, but to recreate in a visceral way, I think is really challenging. And how did you kind of like hold your place within that as you were writing it?
I left. I went to the Outer Banks. I rented a house on a beach, and I went on vacation because I was writing the Myron chapter, his murder chapter, on the anniversary of my own grandfather's lynching here in the city of Memphis, May 30th, 1960, and that was 60 years before the death of George Floyd. That same May 30th. So I was Memorial Day, and I was writing a chapter about Myron, thinking about my grandfather watching a man, George Floyd, being, you know, lynched on national television. So I needed a vacation. You know, I am only human.
Yeah.
I'm not made out of, you know, stone. And sometimes I get sad and stuff, and I need to go away. And I needed to go away. I needed to relax. I needed to eat good food like soft shell crab and just look at the stars and remind myself why we're all still human. So, yeah, it was incredibly hard. These are people who are dying in the streets, and for what? Over some counterfeit $20 bill. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I went away. I was angry.
Did you find that the act of writing about trauma and anger and revenge, you know, vengeance as it were, and restitution in other ways, was that cathartic for you at all?
Sometimes. Like, all the racists in my book, I made a list of names of all the racist coworkers I've ever had, and then just crisscross, and that's how I came up with the character. So that felt nice.
That's amazing.
That was
It's like an exorcism. I love it.
Right. That was I crisscrossed. Like but everybody who know me, like if we went to school together or we worked together and you see your name in there, you know why. But then I thought, well, but these white folk are still racist. In the real world, they're still out there at positions of corporate, America. There's still attorneys who I know are deeply racist and working in the justice system in Chicago. So,
Yeah, we take our power back where we can, I guess.
Right. So it's kind of like a dual-edged sword. So some parts, I guess I felt a little revenge. But then I thought, well, I'm still, even if I'm in a Benz, I'm still in a coupe. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. That's fair. Absolutely fair. I was like, I can't really argue with that. That is what it is.
Right. Like I still have to deal with being a Black female body in this society. So yes and no, it felt.
Being a Black female writer myself, I think you're right. I mean, the power, whatever power trip you may get there it's temporary. I mean, we still live in the world that we live in. We still need the things that we need. We still need the change that we need. All those kind of things. But for a few pages, you get to imagine things another way, I suppose. I want to talk about what else you're imagining, but we're going to take one final break, and we'll be back with more Writing Black. All right, we've got Tara M. Stringfellow with us today on Writing Black, and we've been talking about her incredible novel, Memphis. Mainly, I think we've actually just kind of been geeking about it almost, because I think like it's so relatable.
I feel like this wasn't an interview at all. I feel like this was a nice brunch.
And that's how I want it to feel. Like, Writing Black as a podcast, we're really just here to have conversations about this incredible thing that we get to do, right? And it is an incredible gift that you have. I think it's an incredible book. I want to know what's next for Memphis and what's next for you, if you are at liberty to share.
Yeah, I'm editing a poetry collection that'll be out in 2024 with Dial. And I am, as of last summer, I went to Italy. I summer every year in Italy. And I started my second novel there. Yeah. And so I can't wait to go back this summer to finish up that second. But I'm always going to write. Like writing is so much, it's a joy for me. I don't know what else to do. I'm not really good at anything. Either, so I have to write, I'm so, I'm so honored and humbled by all of the press and the attention that Memphis has gotten. But my dad, we were on the phone, and he said to me, Memphis is just one of your books. You're gonna have a whole, a whole legacy of literature under the Stringfellow name, and that really inspires me to keep going, to keep writing. I'm so excited. As a writer, I'm always more excited for the next book.
I think that's okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. I love that you're already looking to the next thing. I ask every single one of our guests, because I think it's important, just as much as we talked about how vital teachers are to developing one's craft, no matter how much innate talent they have. Also, I often find that the best writers are also great readers. Who inspires you as a writer? Maybe it's not a book. It could be, it could be music. I know, because you come from musical city, and music is a huge part of Memphis as well. Yeah. Who are your favorite writers?
I love, for poets, can we do poets first?
Absolutely.
All right. Poets. Sonia Sanchez.
Yes.
Is God. She is the standard. She is who you beat in poetry. She's the most amazing writer ever. I love Lucille Clifton, Nikki Giovanni, Carolyn Rogers, Hakeem Madhubuti, of course, Natasha Trethewey, Aracelis Gourmet, Ross Gay. Claudia Rankine.
Oh, I love Claudia Rankine. I do.
Right.
Yes.
So those are my favorite for the poetry.
Dig it.
As in fiction, I don't know. Like, I love Alice Walker, of course, and Toni Morrison. She's hard. I can't read her. Like, I have 3 degrees, and sometimes I don't know.
I'm glad that you're admitting that.
No, I'm not smart enough.
I wish more people would admit that. Yes.
No. And then I had to teach it one year. The blue aside, I said, how? Lord Jesus, I don't know what she's talking about. Lord, I'm going to ask these 10th graders. They shouldn't even have to think about this. I don't know what's going on in this damn book. But I love her. But I'm like, woof. You read her sober in the morning, and you try with the notebook, and you try and figure it out. Jacqueline Woodson is one hell of a writer.
Yes.
Can move mountains.
Yes.
With her writing, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it. One paragraph of hers is like, wow.
Well, I appreciate you giving us a glimpse into a little bit of how you do it. I don't know if we're all going to be able to get away to Italy this summer, but I am looking forward to what comes next from you. And again, congratulations on an incredible debut. This is a fantastic book. I think this Women's History Month, even those people who don't consider themselves readers will find a piece themselves in Memphis. So I highly, highly recommend. And Tara, thank you so much for making time for us today and sharing some craft with us here on Writing Black.
Thank y'all so much for having me. This was a delight.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Such a pleasure. And when you're in Chicago, please look me up so we can hang out.
I was just about to
talk words.
Come down to Memphis, But yeah, I would love to meet in person one day. Thank you. You've done me and my city a great honor by having me today. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I think that interview was just as great a ride with Tara Stringfellow in Memphis. And what's so special about letting a place take center stage in a narrative is that it becomes a character in and of itself. Similarly, I really, I love to recommend a book every week that is based on our interviews, and it is a little segment we like to call My Favorites. And this week, I'm going to recommend In Every Mirror She's Black. This is another debut novel. This one is by Lola Åkerström, and if the name didn't tip you off, this is a book that spans cultures and continents. This is about Black women who are navigating life in America and in Sweden. And it is so it's so striking, and it's so just like Memphis, such a nuanced take on Black women's lives and survival mechanisms and the myriad issues that we deal with just by virtue of identity. And it's also a really striking piece of fiction that I really think people enjoy. So In Every Mirror She's Black is my favorite for this week. That, and of course, Memphis Shawl. So get into these, and we will see you next week on another episode of Writing Black. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of Writing Black. As always, you can find us on the theGrio app or wherever you find your podcasts.
I'm political scientist, author, and professor Dr. Christina Greer, and I'm host of the Blackest Questions on theGrio's Black Podcast Network. This person invented ranch dressing around 1950. Who are they?
I have no idea.
This all began as an exclusive Black History trivia party at my home in Harlem with family and friends. And they got so popular, it seemed only right to share the fun with our Grio listeners. Each week, we invite a familiar face on the podcast to play. What was the name of the person who was an enslaved chief cook for George Washington and later ran away to freedom? In 1868, this university was the first in the country to open a medical school that welcomed medical students of all races, genders, and social classes. What university was it?
No, this is why I like doing stuff with you, because I leave educated. I was not taught this in Alabama public schools.
Question number 3, you ready?
Yes. Let me try to redeem myself.
How did we go from Kwanzaa to like these obscure?
Sport, darling.
This is like the New York Times crossword from a Monday to a Saturday.
Right or wrong? Because all we care about is the journey and having some fun while we do it.
I'm excited and also a little nervous.
Oh, listen, no need to be nervous. And as I tell all of my guests, this is an opportunity for us to educate ourselves because Black history is American history. So we're just gonna have some fun. Listen, some people get 0 out of 5, some people get 5 out of 5. It doesn't matter. We're just gonna be on a little intellectual journey together.
LaToya Cantrell?
That's right, Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
Hercules Posey.
Born in 1754, and he was a member of the Mount Vernon slave community, widely admired for his culinary skills.
I'm going to guess Afro-punk.
Close. It's Afro Nation. So last year, according to my research, it's Samuel Wilson, aka Falcon.
Wrong. Wrong. I am disputing this.
I'm very 99.9999 sure that it is Representative John Lewis, who is also from the state of Alabama. That lets you know, Christina, we got some goodness come out of Alabama.
There's something in the water in Alabama, and you are absolutely correct.
The harder they come.
Close.
Oh, wait. The harder they fall?
That's right. I'm one of those people that just changes one word.
I mean, I know the song too well.
I just don't know nothing today. I'm going to pour myself a little water while you tell me the answer.
The answer is Seneca Village, which began in 1825 with the purchase of land by a trustee of the AME Zion Church.
You know why games like this make me nervous? I don't know if I know enough black. Do I know enough? How black am I? Oh, my Lord, we gonna find out in public.
So give us a follow, subscribe, and join us on the Blackest Questions.